and welcome to the old shop for a new season, really, because it's spring now and I decided that it's been quite long enough that I hadn't been making videos, so I thought I would start again. So you're very welcome to join me. What I've done for this first one is there's just really two parts to it. I've gone down to the alder carr down the lane here, which is somewhere I very often walk, just to show you what that's looking like at the moment. And as well as that, I've filmed in the back garden, which I hasn't had very much done to it yet. It's all looking very muddily, but that's what I thought. I thought, well, look at it how it is now, and then come back as the season progresses, and hopefully there'll be some things to show. Well, there will be some things to show, because whatever I do or don't do, the nature will do what nature does. So I hope you'll enjoy that. It's a bit of a longer video this time because it's the first one and I wanted to get right round the garden to show you, but I'm hoping to do more short videos, but shorter videos. That's kind of my idea. I know I haven't been very present for a while. Been a bit of a strange winter, but I'm back now, and so I'm really looking forward to making some more videos and showing you life in and around the old shop. I've just come down the lane towards the alder carr, and you can see that everything in the hedgerow is actually looking at its most stripped back, and it just is really wintry, and I always forget every year that it does this. In fact, some years the blackthorn blossom is out by now, I've noticed from my photographs. This year there is some in some places, but here along this bit of hedge none of the blackthorn is actually in flower. It's all looking very reluctant. You can see really tight buds there. I love it like this though, because you can see all the potential. It's just getting ready, and one day one flower will open, and then it doesn't take long once that happens. Once it kind of gets to the point where everything bursts open, I shall look forward to that as well. I like all the stages. I must admit, I do like this wintry phase when you can see all the colours of the twigs. They're all so different. You think, oh, a twig is a twig, but it really isn't. And it's really interesting to spend the time, I suppose, just looking and really enjoying it while it's like this. I've just spotted one little open flower, but in general it is actually still quite a wintry scene. And here we are looking down the little stream. This is where I sometimes see red deer, and this is the edge of the alder carr. I can see it's not particularly full of water at the moment, but I thought we might go in and have a look anyway, because it's different. Literally every single time you come here is different. You never know quite how it's going to appear, so why don't we have a look together? Something else I could just show you is how it's just to see the contrast really of what's going to happen soon, but you can see all the old blackberries there just hanging on, and the ivy berries as well. But it won't be long now before all those sort of things get covered by all the new growth. There's just a tiny little wire to step over here, and it always just feels like when you step over it that you're just entering another world. And that's the carr. I can see lots of little muntjac hoof prints like this in the mud. And one of the first things you notice is that the water isn't all that high. All around the edges looks really green, and that's because what you can see, all that green, is bluebell leaves. It doesn't really get carpeted with flowers so much in this little part. I think some of them do come up blind, So you've just got the green leaves and you don't get the blue flowers, but you do get some flowers as well. So we'll wait and see. I mean, it's a little while, as you can tell, it's a little while yet before we'll be seeing that. But it's just another sign of spring, really. The fact the leaves themselves have come up and ready to go. The water I've known is a lot higher than it is at the moment, so some of the roots there that are often underwater you can see exposed a bit more, and you can see some grass there as well, which again is quite often underwater. But when it's quite a grey afternoon like this, you don't have the sparkle of you've got the reflections of course, but you haven't got the sun sparkling on the water, so it's much more matte. And so you sort of feel that you can look more into the depths, and the shadows or the reflections are somehow much more deep and mysterious. You don't know whether you're looking down or looking up. You don't know whether you could leap in there and leap among the treetops. And as well as that, I think the colours of the trunks, when it's not so bright, you really notice the colours. They really sing out more because you haven't got that real lightness of the sunshine on them, which bleaches them out. So you've got a lot more depth of colour. So it's a nice thing we've come here this afternoon, I think, to have a look together. And you can see how some of the trees, especially it's the birches, that have fallen and are just left where they fall, which I find really interesting. I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but it's very prehistoric, and it's very much how valley bottoms would always have been before agriculture improved things and straightened things out and drained the valley bottoms and so on. So the streams would just run when it was the time of year for them to run, or when the conditions were such that they would run, and everything just moved at its own pace a lot more. And that's what you can see here. So when the trees fall and they just rot, and then that will provide different environments for different wildlife. And then when you see the bases of the alders, like you can see just ahead of us here, you see how they're like little islands, and how the little tiny twigs, I think they have a name which I've just forgotten, when they spring up from the bottom like that. But anyway, it's very typical of alders, and I think very enchanting or enchanted. I remember coming down here to this stump a couple of years ago when I had a candle edition that I'd made called Mermaid's Head, and the stories around that were to do with watery places, holy wells and springs, and places of pilgrimage, and just places that have been thought sacred in the landscape really, but particularly watery ones. And so I came down here to photograph some of the candles in their pots alight, and I remember putting some of them on this stump here to photograph them, and I've just realised in 2 years how much more that stump has rotted, because it was so much bigger than that. It had a flat surface on the top, and now it's just, you can see how spongy it is. It's just on its way out, and you can see a bit in the water there, which I imagine is broken off. I don't know whether just here is broken a bit more as well, I'm not quite sure, but definitely it's quite a different shape than it was 2 years ago. So again, you can sort of see that process by which everything gently subsides back into the earth and into the water. So you can see how something else will just take its place as this disappears and disintegrates. There'll be another stump, and so on. And so the landscape is always changing, and it's always really interesting to come down. Even the tiny changes from day to day are real. There really are changes. Sometimes it's rained and you think it's going to be really full, and it's not. And then other times it's not rained for a while, and you come down and it's, for some reason, it's really, really overflowing of water. So it's just one of those things that is always worth coming down to. Even if you've got a few minutes just for a little break, it's worth coming down and seeing what's happening, and I do when I can. There's a bit of breeze today, so you can see how the water is now rippling a bit. So it's the other, when I came, I don't know, day before yesterday, I think. I do come quite down here quite a lot. It was completely still, and it was, I said at the time, it was like a black scrying glass that you could just look into its depths. And it is still quite dark because it's the sky is grey, but it's because it's moving, because there's some breeze. It just has a different effect again. It almost looks silver. There's some different shapes here with the holly leaves being reflected as well. And I was thinking it's almost like the twigs, the bare twigs like this reflected are almost like leaf skeletons. The water is quite low today, but it's always, I can't really resist photographing when I come down here, even if sometimes it's more dramatic than this. There's lots of dry areas which are often underwater, just where we're looking now actually. I keep finding more different angles that I like to photograph it from. So I'm going to go back now and collect some kindling in the woods on the way back. There's so many dry sticks. Well, I mean, they're dryish. they're dry sticks in terms of being dead sticks, but I need to get them in so that they will be nice and crispy to light the fire with. There's a lot. The way the woodland is managed or not managed in acorn wood means that there's always masses of dead bits of wood on the ground. I've just stopped off on my way back to collect some sticks for kindling in acorn wood. I've got a basket here, I've put some in, I'm going to get some more. I know that if everybody collected sticks, it wouldn't be good for the ecosystems, because obviously you need rotting wood in the wood, but there's so much in this wood, there's so much, it just gets left to lie and nobody collects it. Even things like blackberries around here that don't get picked, and well, I mean, a few people probably do, but there are so many and people just leave them. So the chances of people coming and finding sticks and deciding they're going to light their fires with them is really remote, but that's exactly what I'm doing. And I was coming out here and finding some sticks, very, very dry sticks. In fact, they're so dry, some of them, that they are rotting, but they're still good for a tinder for lighting the fire. Much better than breaking up pieces of wood and using the wood you've bought. I've actually suddenly thought, well, why am I doing this when I could collect some like I used to? Oh, by the way, look at this beautiful birch tree next to where I am. Really beautiful, isn't it? The shapes that the trunks are formed into. But anyway, what I was saying was, yeah, there's lots and lots of twigs here, so I've taken to collecting some when I come out, and they last, usually if I get a bundle, it lasts me 3 or 4 days probably of lighting the stove, so really worth doing. And to start with, what I was doing was I was just coming along and I was collecting sticks or breaking some up, nice dry ones like oh, that's a bit too rotten, that one, but a lot of them they're pretty rotten, but they're still good to use. Anyway, I was doing that, and then one day a woman who I often see, a dog walker, I often see her and say hello, and she said to me, she's noticed me before collecting wood and twigs, and she said, why don't you bring a basket? And I thought, oh yes. Sometimes it's the simplest things that you don't think of. Why didn't I think of bringing a basket? I have these armfuls of twigs that I'm clutching, and some of them fall out, and I'm forever bending down to pick some more of them up that I've dropped as I go along, and then I suddenly get this very sensible suggestion of bringing a basket, which is what I do now. The woodland is really, really bare, as you can see, and you can really see the shape of everything. It's really quite uncanny, actually, in early March, how everything gets stripped back to the bone, and it's really odd. But it won't be like this for very long. The undergrowth will come up, and the leaves will come onto the birches quite early. Birches are early leafers. So here's my basket. I'll put those in, and I'll go and get some more. And I don't need huge numbers at a time. It's just doing it regularly, and then that keeps me going. And in the cottage, they're dry in terms of being seasoned, but they'll be really dry in the atmosphere there near the fire. And yeah, that's my little thing I've been doing, and I don't know why I didn't start doing it sooner. I'm on the way home now up on the heath, and you can see all this gorse. So where the gorse has been cut earlier, there's quite a lot of gorse root, like loose bits of gorse stem and root here. So I've been collecting some of that as well for my kindling, because that'll be beautifully dry, and it'll flare up beautifully as kindling. So that's just going on the top, and then I shall make my way back, which isn't very far, just 3 or 4 minutes walk away. And I should be going back to the old shop. It would have been nice to be able to show you some work that's been done in the back garden before making a video, but in fact I wanted to start doing a few videos again, so I'm decided that rather than waiting for some mythical future when everything looks amazing, it will be better just to make a start. Let's have a little look. I apologise that it is what it is. The fire pit here is upside down because otherwise it just gets full of water because we've had lots of rain. I won't linger too much because I think I just want to give you a sort of overview, and then we'll come back over the season. So this area here, which is the wood chip area, if you've been following at all, you might remember that I spent a long time last year putting down thick cardboard and then wood chip to try to make this little area here clear. After I cleared it of lots and lots of thistles and tall nettles and masses of stuff. But as you can probably also see, it's all coming back. Now, I don't quite know what I'm going to do about this. Nice to have the daffodils. I know these will come up by themselves through the cardboard, but it's not really what I want longer term. So I don't know. I'm just showing it to you at the moment, and then we'll work. It'll get worked out what to do. Hopefully, I'd like to have a bit of grass over this area. That was the original idea. Maybe that will be possible to do. This is a pear tree. It's a commies pear tree, and the buds are really big on there. So that's not going to be long at all before those leaves break. There's a little cluster of fruit trees here that I never got round to planting out, and some of them have survived and some haven't, but it's easy now to see which. This is almost even out, this bud here. This was intended to be a sort of winter corner, and there's some winter honeysuckle here in flower, and fragrant. The idea was to have some fragrant plants down here as well. I don't know whether you can hear, but the birds are really amazing at the moment. I think they do a sort of evening chorus as well as a dawn chorus. I heard the dawn chorus this morning, but this seems to be an evening one, not too long before sunset, when they have a last sing before tucking their heads under their wings. What we're looking at here is sea buckthorn, and this again has got these little leaves come out. It's very spiny, and it has orange berries that you can eat. I've made a little hedge of it. The idea was to sort of mark out one of the edges of this little lawn area, which isn't a lawn area, but you can see it's like a potential lawn area at the moment, and the paths are still looking like paths because the season hasn't got underway yet, but it will not take long at all before this would become impassable if I don't do something about it, which I'm not quite sure what that something about it will be, but you're just seeing it as it is. So what you're seeing underfoot here is nettles, young, which of course you can use and you can eat and you can have as tea while they're like this. There's a lot of this stuff which is like, I think one of the names for it is false comfrey. It's probably got a more accurate name than that. It's all over the garden, and it was when there was nothing in the garden, when it was all bulldozed to nothing, and then everything came up that wanted to. It just completely covered the garden, and it's not very useful. It just takes away space from things I do want to grow. So that's all going to come out. I have got some actual comfrey that I've grew from seed, lots of clumps of that, which will be staying in because that makes brilliant compost. And I put some on the compost heap, and you can also spread it around the base of plants that you want to feed. and it's really good for that as well. There's lots of little apple trees around and about. This is another one which is leaves are breaking. I lost track completely of what apple trees are what variety. I know a few of them, but not that many of them. And there's some molehills here, I'm very pleased to see. That's a molehill, and that's another one. So we've got some wildlife activity. And I've got lots of different fruit bushes, soft fruit bushes. Can't remember what exactly that is, because some of them are kind of hybrid things like tayberries, and I've got a josterberry around the corner, which is a hybrid between a black currant and a gooseberry, which is quite an interesting idea. And in the actual woodland here, you can see it's looking a little bit grim at the moment, but the life is definitely commencing, and a lot of this is a hazel. It's got little leaves coming here, and there are, well, lots of them have actually. And the birches, I planted 5. So we're walking through the trees. It's a sort of path-ish at the moment. I won't stay a path for very long, because you can see down here all the nettles starting again. So it's just a case. I say it's just a case. It is a case of just getting to work and gradually seeing what I can do with it, really. This little area here is a circle of 5 silver birches, which I'm just trying to get into the middle of, because their branches are now almost touching each other. But it's just quite interesting. They were all planted at the same time, and they were just like little sticks. They were for hedging, as all these trees were. They were sold as hedging plants in bundles, and there was a bundle of 5 silver birches, so I bought them. And it's interesting how some of them have become silver. You can see how they take on their adult coloration, and 1 or 2 of them are just kind of transitional, like this one here is still looking brown, and you can just see lower down where it's starting to become silver. So it's quite an interesting process to watch. And this one here has become silver, and there's one here which is again transitional here. So they've been a real success story, the silver birches, in terms of how big they've grown. They're really huge. They're really tall. They've all been in for how long have they been in? They've been in since winter 20 to 21. So that's not long, really, is it? 3 years? And just look at the size of everything. It's just amazing how things can grow. And so some things more than others, like the alder trees. There are 5 alders as well, and they've become proper trees in 3 years from being little sticks. And they go through all their processes by having the catkins here and the cones here, and they'll have leaves as well. And the trunks are really quite thick, considering that how they started as little twigs. And there's another tree here, another very happy tree. I had to take some of these out because there were 5 of them, and they are really spiny, and they're wild pears. And a wild pear bears no relation really to a normal cultivated pear. For example, they have got the most vicious spines here. I mean, amazingly vicious. You think blackthorn is vicious, these wild pears are more so, because the spines are everywhere, and they're absolutely pin sharp. But I let one of them stay because it has such pretty early blossom. So it's got blossom now. It's really pretty, and it's so happy. Its trunk is like is a tree trunk. I don't know if I can put my hands here and show you. And that was again a little sapling stick, literally something that's sold to put into a native hedge. There's loads of raspberry canes come up everywhere, and some of them will be able to stay because they're not doing any harm. If they're kind of where we need to walk, then I'll have to probably take them out. I took lots out last year, but they will always come back. And all this periwinkle, which I wanted to have like a forest floor, because you don't want bare earth, you want layers if you're going to have a forest. And I call it a forest, it's just a tiny area, of course. So I don't know whether you can get the sense of how big it is, but it's only a few metres each way. But it's chock full of trees, And the idea was that it would have a canopy, which would be the tallest trees, which are the ones that want to be tallest, basically, as you can see up here. And then you'd have a mid layer, so other kinds of tree that I've put in that haven't grown so much, or I haven't got such a more shrubby, like Gelder rose or hazel. I can do it with the hazels. I'd cut them down to a kind of mid-size, so that they'd be like a shrub layer. This is what woodland has and will naturally have in one form or another. And then you want a layer, a kind of woodland floor layer, which you don't want to be things like thistles and nettles ideally, although the light levels should pay to the things that shouldn't be on a forest floor as the trees grow. That's the theory. I don't know how well that works in a small space like this, but so what I did was, in the woods there was some periwinkle, which I don't think is native to the woods necessarily, but there was some, just growing in the woods, and I just pulled a strand of it out and pushed it into the ground here, and it's completely gone mad. I don't know, again, if you can see all the little purple flowers everywhere. That's all come from this little slip of periwinkle that I put in, like literally a little strand in my hand I carried back. It's all come from that. It's so happy. It's climbing up everything. I think it's okay as it is. I don't think it's doing any harm. And I did the same with honeysuckle, wild honeysuckle. And I don't know whether that survived, but I bet it has, because that really wants to grow in the woods. So I'm sure there'll be some of that. Here's some. Here. That's all the wild honeysuckle. Again, I just pulled a couple of strands out in the wood, in the acorn wood, and it's growing up everything, which I want it to do. It's just that everything is such a muddle that it's really hard to see what's what. This is an apple tree which is falling over, so I'm going to have to get a stake and try and train that back upright. And I know there's another one which is bent sideways on the other side of the woods, but it was always important idea in the whole scheme of things to have a mixture of native trees that are just here because they're native trees and they're good for wildlife and they're good for the ecosystems and in general, and also productive gardens, so that there are quite a lot of fruit trees among the other trees, like this apple tree that I've just sort of shown you, which does need some attention, quite urgently in fact. And there are one or two other apple trees in the woodland. I think this is one. Oh, this is quite a good sized one, if it is one. Can't remember what's what now. I'm not sure about that one, but it might be. But there certainly are one or two others. I can see one at the other in the edge of the wood. I think in total there's probably at least a dozen apple trees in the garden, here and there. And it's such a small garden, but it just shows kind of what can be done. Well, I think what can be done. And here's the other apple tree that's falling over, which is called, I do know what this one is. It's Adam's pearmain, which needs the same as the other one. It needs a stake and to be really forced into standing upright, and then it will grow fine. And here's another more soft fruit. Look how the leaves have come out already. Quite, they're quite almost like adult leaves. That's a blackcurrant. Loads of stuff to clear out here. But it's good that you're seeing it now, I think. And look at all this old bindweed right up the trees. That tree's alive. That's an apple tree, which is good. I know I shouldn't be excited that something's still alive, because you'd like to hope that everything's still alive. But, you don't know till the spring comes and the leaves come out what has survived. So that, I don't know what that is. And there's some bamboo here, which is not particularly native or anything, but I was given some clumps of bamboo by some friends to help me fill the garden out, which is a very kind gift. So I put them in, and they're not doing any harm. There's some lovely hellebores which you can't see at all because of all the stuff everywhere. This is an apple tree. If you can get beyond all the stuff. Oh no, we can't, because it's all thistle. There's some beautiful hellebores, and I really think it's going to be worth. Can you see? I've just pushed the camera down between all the other stuff, and you can see how gorgeous they are. And that really would be a good idea for me to make it so you can actually get to them and see them. And that should be a bit of a target, I think, for one of the sessions of work in the garden. Lots more of this false comfrey, which I will feel better to get rid of it, to be honest, because it's just everywhere. I mean, I suppose in some places it could potentially stay because it is covering the earth, which you do want to do. but I think I have to use my judgment on that really. This whole end of the garden is all nettles going right up to the hedge. I don't know if the hedge is going to get cut now because it's too near the nesting season, so that might have to stay. Or I might have to just get at bits of it that I can get at. But again, this is all for the future really. You're just seeing everything at once, a whole splurge of everything in the garden, and then hopefully there'll be some progress to show you. And there's some very healthy looking shrubs as well, like this is a Gelder rose, and it looks really happy. And it doesn't have, it's not a productive plant for me, it's a native species, and the berries are very good for the birds, and no doubt other wildlife will help themselves as well, so when they fall, so it's really good to have. Oh, I'll show you what I've got here. Now this tree, which I can't think what it is, I'll know once. It might be a sweet chestnut, but look, the honeysuckle, as I say, a little slip I got from the woods, it's actually climbed up the tree just as it does in the woods, so that's quite exciting. Oh wow, this tree's got a huge, I can't even think what it is, but it's really big. I'll know once the leaves get up a bit more. I think it's a wild cherry, so it's not one, again, it's not an edible tree really, it's something for the birds, and just because it's a nice, it's good. All trees are a good thing to have in the garden. And the hedge, it started off as a privet hedge. It was here already, it wasn't very thick, and I've put in about 70, I know you wouldn't really know it, but about 70 little native hedging plants went into the hedge as well to thicken it up. And here and there you can see where there are some of the things that were put in. I can see some lovely blossom at the back there. I don't quite know what that is. I'll have to get closer to it to find that out. And there's elder here. They were here already, the elders. I just moved them towards the hedge there. So hopefully there'll be some nice elder flowers later. And a pear tree that I put that pear tree in. But I do see some, for example, wild roses sticking out of the hedge, which I put in. Quite a lot of them, which I'll probably have to trim back. There's a lot to do. And this is a nice apple tree, really nice apple tree, and it's not in a very good place, but it's a very nice apple tree. One of the things that's been really hard to know what to do about are the raised beds, because growing vegetables is really important here. The beds are falling to pieces. I don't really have the wherewithal to put them together. There they are, and I think that and also it's quite hard because they're full of earth and they've spread out more. There's more earth to grow things in because they're splayed outwards as they've collapsed. So, well, not every side's collapsed, but lots of it has. So, because it was all made from old wood from the house, which of course never was going to last forever or anything. And one or two of the sides are better because they were made from thicker things. Like there was an old carpenter's bench in one of the sheds, which I saved to use for this, and that's really thick wood, and I can see that's perfectly good still, but most of the wood is rotten, and the same along the edges and the edgings that I put in as well. But I think for this year, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen here at the old shop. It's all a little bit up in the air, so I think for this year just keep everything as it is, clear the beds, which as you can probably see started to do had a little bit of help, and that was really nice to work together to do that. And as you can see, there's more to do. And one of the first things to put in the next few days will be some broad beans, because they can go in early, and I think that will feel really nice just to get something in for this year's crops. Really nice. So just to finish off, I'll just kind of give you a view through. I know if you're used to really tidy gardens, or gardens that, yeah, I've got a little bit of what's the word, integrity, is that the right word? I don't know. You'll probably be appalled by this garden, and I'm appalled by it in lots of ways, because it's the more I show you, the more I think I'm not quite sure what to do about loads of it, and how by the time you start clearing these nettles, by the time you've done about 2 square yards and you come back again, there's probably come back again, and you haven't done the rest of it. But I think rather than being totally daunted, just take that approach, just do a little bit at a time and enjoy it. and just see what happens. And then being out here gives you a chance as well to see the birds, and the trees are now big enough that the birds actually land in the trees, and I just find that such a joy when a blue tit will land in one of my birches, for example. I've actually grown trees that are big enough for a bird to land in, which I know probably doesn't sound very much to you, but when you see that what the garden was when it was bulldozed and there was nothing in here, and I'd made these huge mistakes with everything really. The fact I've got trees that birds can land in now is, yeah, I'm really pleased about. I've also turned my compost heap. This is looking a bit of a mess because of the buddleia being cut back, but I think you can get the idea. I turned the compost heap yesterday, I think it was, or the day before, so there'll be some good compost in that side, and start. It's done a bit of work even since then, because there's some stuff that's gone into the new side. There's a creature, don't know who, who's actually made a big hole in the corner there. So insects moving around now because it's nearly dusk, and there's a huge amount of soil that they've pushed out, and there's quite a big hole. It's too big for a rat. I don't know who's made that hole, but if I'm going to be out here a bit more, then maybe I'll actually see some activity, because I've seen no sign of how it happened yet. So I'll leave it there, and we'll come back once I've done some more work. And to be honest, I think probably more of it will be given to nature than I intend now at this point, because I'm thinking now I'm going to be cultivating lots of things and so on. But there will be some cultivation take place, and there will be some vegetables to eat. But what you can see left in the beds here, a lot of this probably isn't edible. When I pull up I think, oh, there's carrots here, but I think when I pull them up, they'll be probably too wormy to eat. But you know, it's worth a look, which I should be doing as I go along. And there's lots of foxgloves in this bed, which we don't want because they are not good for a vegetable bed. But I can transplant some of them along the sides. So there's plenty to do, and we'll be back to have a look quite soon.